good because what?
You'll have to turn around.
You'll have to turn around. I'll turn around when we get to it. Yeah, it's going to help. There's a couple of important battles between the Rambam and the Rabbi in this Perek, and really crucial things about the Beis Hamikdash. A lot of this Perek and Perek Dal will talk about the building of the Yechiel. Right, Perek Dal Halacha Aleph. Even hoyse bekodesh hakadoshim b'marava yivaleh haya arin munach. There was a rock. It's called the Even Hashsiya. That was in the Kodesh Kedoshim, and upon it was the Arin. Some say that the world started. Some of Mepharshim explained the world started from this rock. Memenu hushtas kala olam. Ulefona of Tzinsenes Hamon Mati Arin. And in front of this, the Arin was the mon that they put in a jug, the mishmeres, and the stick of Arin. They had the nes, the blossom. Beishabana Shloimes Habayis v'Yodesh Esayfer the Bana Makim Ligunis by Arin Lamata. Shlomo knew that there'll be a time that Beis Hamikdash should be destroyed. He didn't want the Arin to be captured. He made a place to hide the Arin. It was
a silly question. Why didn't he build a place the other cannot be? They get captured as a different
the simple answer is that everything else can have a replacement besides the Arin. The Arin you can't replace, because if the luchos are missing, you don't have Arin. There'll be another reason later.
But also the place where they hit the Arin, other implements of the Yechiel were hidden there also.
No, it's mashma soon that maximum was only the Tzentzenes Hamon and Mata Arin in that place. Yechiel HaMelech, there's a long sikh of the Rebbe that had to be buried in the Beis Hamikdash itself, not somewhere else, because it's still there, somewhere deep down under. And there was a Rav in Eretz Yisrael after the 6-day war that tried to find the Arin. The whole Arichas story. Rabbi Gatz, I think his name was. There's a couple of articles about him. Because there's a Gemara or somewhere that says that someone was a kohen that found a rock a little loose, a stone in the Beis Hamikdash, and he realized there's a path under. He picked it up and he went in and he passed away or looked in, and he realized that that's from there you can get to the Arin. So he made a cheshbon where that rock was and where the opening to get there. And Pizeh he started digging from the tunnels on the Koisel. But the whole thing, the Rebbe asked him to stop. There was some politics that the Arabs, when he was digging, he realized the Arabs are digging from the other side. They're doing stuff. Kind of thing. The Rebbe told him it's Ruchninstika reasons he should stop.
That happened in the 80s.
The Viola, the government was also happy that Rebbe told him to stop. What?
But that happened in the 80s.
Yeah, it could be. I'm not sure when.
Yeah, but they'd still make a million in that area. They closed it off.
Yeah, they closed it off.
But they
stopped. But he had a plan to go from there and find the Arin.
They didn't stop and close it off. The 4-foot barrier.
Yeah. They didn't stop and close it off.
Never tried using sonar or radar?
I don't know. Well, there was there is an Igros Kodesh correspondence of the Rebbe to him, or back to the Sikhs, and there is letters of the Rebbe to him, where the Rebbe thanks him later for stopping the project. And the Rebbe, I guess, held halachically it's problematic to go there.
We found it.
No, because it's the whole thing. The tunnels under the Beis Hamikdash are Kodesh Yechiel. The Rebbe holds you're not allowed to go in certain places in the Beis Hamikdash besides the fact that we're tummy, even if you're a kohen, right? Definitely if you're not a kohen. Now the tunnels under the Beis Hamikdash, if it's open to the Beis Hamikdash, they're Kodesh. If they're open to outside, they're Choil. Kitzer, the Rebbe made a tzad to say that the tunnel that will have the Arin is a tunnel that has an opening to the place, to the area of the Azara, that therefore it's Kodesh. And therefore it's halachically complicated to go in such a place. So Shlomo Melech made the place where you're going to hide the Arin. But Yechiel Melech, Tziva v'gonzu oisev ha'makom shebana Shlomo. Yechiel actually the one who said they should hide it. I mean, Yechiel wasn't Bizman HaChurban. It was Tzidkiyahu. Yechiel was a couple of years before. 30 years before. 25 years before. Then there was Yechanya and there was Tzidkiyahu. But he's the one who actually said to hide it. Shenemar v'yemer l'levim ha'mevinim l'chol Yisrael l'ktoshim l'Hashem Tunuas Aron HaKodesh Rabbi Shabana Shlomo ben David. You should put in the place, the house, meaning the hiding place. Melech Yisrael, in the Chamasa Bakati, you're not going to carry the Aron anymore with your shoulders. Either Shem Lekechem v'Goymer. So the base of ministry, the last Meshach Zman, of Bayis Ishin also didn't have an Aron. Was already hidden before. Some people say, some of Farshim say, that why did Yeshua Melech hide it, even though it wasn't yet the time of the Churban? Because, in the time of Yeshua, they found the Torah in the base of Mikdash. He made a big tumult about it. Torah that Moshe Rabbeinu wrote. And when he opened up the Torah, it was open to the pasuk of the Klaus and Dvarim, where it says that the Abishah will take your king in Galus. So he felt it was a remez that Galus is coming, and it's time to hide the Aron. Another thing is, what does it mean you can't carry with your shoulder? The Chayri, you can ask that maybe the Yidden could have taken the Aron with them down to Bavel, and then bring it back up to Bayesheni. Why do you have to hide it? So he told them, Ein lecha masa b'katev. Once the Aron came to the base of Mikdash, there's no more carrying the Aron from place to place. In the Midbar, you carried it. In the Mishkan, you carried it. But now, you can't. If you take it down, you can't take it down to Bavel and take it back up. Ein lecha masa b'katev. We can't carry the Aron from place to place on Katsef anymore. Some others say it was a practical reason. Maybe it would go to Bavel would confiscate it, would never let it go back up. B'nai Shvi, the Aron was not a keli. Back to your Rapper's question, maybe about what happened to the other kelim. Other kelim, number one, they could replace it. Number two, possibly they had a plan. You could take it with us. You can hide it somewhere. The Aron you can't carry.
They used it by authority.
In a chanami. But maybe the Yidden had a plan that they'll come back. You don't have to hide it. You don't have to build a hiding place for it in advance. The Aron was unique. V'nigan as imay with the Aron was buried mati Aron tzitzenas Haman Shem and Hamishcha. Three other things: the staff of Aron, the Mon, and the Shem. They used to be Moshe, the Kahanim, Gedolim. V'chol leilu lechazru b'Bayesheni, and b'Bayesheni you're missing these things. So there are four things missing: the Aron, the Mata Aron, tzitzenas Haman Shem and Hamishcha. There's a 15 that was missing. V'af Urim v'Tumim Shoy B'Bayesheni loy mishim b'ruch hakodesh. So the Rambam says there was Urim and Tumim Bayesheni, but it wasn't working. It wasn't answering the Ruach HaKodesh. And therefore they didn't ask questions to the Kohen Gadol through the Urim and Tumim because it didn't work. Shenemrak, it says, Adamoin Kohen and Tumim, the Bayesheni in Nehemiah Ezra told them, we don't have an answer to some of your questions because we don't have a Kohen with the Urim and Tumim anymore. Until Mashiach comes, we'll have a Kohen with Urim and Tumim. We didn't make it. So why do they need the Urim and Tumim if it doesn't work? There's no Ruach HaKodesh there. Because you need to have Shmoyne Begadim. And if you're not going to have the Urim and Tumim, it's going to be missing. Because a Kohen can't be missing Begadim, he has to have his 8 Begadim. So what exactly is going on? What is the Urim and Tumim that if you're missing it, you're missing the Shmoyne Begadim. But on the other hand, it didn't work with Ruach HaKodesh. So there's a discussion. Obviously the Rambam somehow the Urim and Tumim was a parchment or a paper that had the Shem Mefaidish in it, that was under the Choshen. And that's brought the Koyach. If that's the case, then you don't need it in Bayesheni. It's not one of the Shmoyne Begadim. What does the mean that if you didn't have the Urim and Tumim, you'd be missing the Shmoyne Begadim? So they made it, but it didn't work. So there are two Biyurim. One is that the Rambam, when Rambam holds Urim and Tumim, he doesn't mean a special thing. He means the Choshen itself. The Choshen is also called the Urim v'Tumim, because that's how they able to answer by different oisiyos on the Choshen, or shining or dark. So he had to make the Choshen, but it didn't work. Another Piddush is the Bayesheni. You mean that's one Mefarish. In the Bayesheni, the Urim v'Tumim. The Rambam says Urim v'Tumim. Was there a Shem Mefarish according to the Rambam? According to this Pshat, it didn't have to be. It was or it didn't. It wasn't. It's not when you call Urim v'Tumim. Another Piddush is no. It did have a parchment. The Rambam holds that the parchment is part of the Choshen. It's not a separate thing that they added. And if you're missing that parchment, it's as if you didn't have a Choshen, and therefore it's considered missing the Begadim.
The Urim was the stones themselves.
But when you say Urim v'Tumim, we know the stones. So what's called Urim v'Tumim? The parchment or the stones? Correct.
The stones he would get the Ruach HaKodesh.
But the shaila is, what's called Urim v'Tumim? The parchment. Some say it's the parchment that was behind the stones that are called the Urim v'Tumim.
So either you had the parchment by both Bayeshish and Bayesheni, but you didn't have.
And it was no, it could be they had it by Bayeshish and they were missing it by Bayesheni, but that's not a ma'akiv. If you hold that the
based on that, you had your kasha. What do you mean it's there, but it's close to punishment?
No, the kasha was why is it if the Urim Tumim is called the parchment? Why is it called Mechus Begudim? So one piddush is that Rambam holds that the Urim Tumim, if there was a parchment, it's not Nageya. That's not what he calls Urim Tumim. When he said the Bayis Sheni had Urim Tumim, but it wasn't working, it means he had a choshen. The choshen wasn't working. Another piddush is that no, it actually means a parchment, and that parchment, according to the Rambam, chiddush, it's also part of the beged.
Urim Tumim means what? Means light and completion.
I don't know the exact taich oil v'tmimus. I don't know.
I read somewhere that it was the reason why it wasn't working was also with Yidden's problem. Not that it wasn't working; it would have worked. Yidden was Efer.
Okay, Kenzai. We know that we weren't the Bayis Sheni wasn't in the same level as Zochu as it should have been. Okay. Here, so that's because we're now in the Tchalas Managula, so we have the Urim Tumim again to a certain extent. Okay. The Rabbi right away over here doesn't like this whole discussion. He asks on the Rambam that it says that in Bayis Sheni, he says Urim Tumim Ruach HaKodesh Shnei Dvarim Heim. There's a list of 5 things that were missing in Bayis Sheni. One is Urim Tumim, the other one is Ruach HaKodesh. So number one, I don't understand the Rambam that he's saying that he's making as if it's one thing. And number two, Chis Begadim Sha'amar in a klum. What does it mean it was missing Begadim? The Urim V'Tumim is not one of the Begadim. So we see that Rabbi clearly held that the Urim V'Tumim was this parchment that was not part of the Begadim. The Rambam held either the Urim V'Tumim is the Choshen itself or that it was part of the Choshen.
Like the Choshen is not part of the Begadim?
What?
Like the Ravid, the Choshen is not part of the Begadim?
No, he holds the Urim V'Tumim. He never entertained that the Urim V'Tumim means the Choshen. He entertained the Urim V'Tumim means a parchment, and it's not part of the Shemona Begadim. He didn't call the Choshen Urim V'Tumim. Maybe the Urim V'Tumim caused the Choshen to work, but it's still something else, like a machine and a battery. It's not part. It's the battery. It's not the baguette.
The Rabbi held that the Choshen was not the Urim V'Tumim.
Yeah. The Ketzer Mishnah explains that the Rambam held that the Ruach HaKodesh, when it says Ruach HaKodesh is missing, it means the Ruach of there was no Nevi'im. That's what the Rambam held, that Ruach HaKodesh and Urim V'Tumim are 2 separate things. Halacha Beis. Bebayis Sheni al Yakoisel Mavdil ben Kodesh to Kodesh Kedashim. Bebayis Rishon, al Yakoisel Mavdil ben Kodesh Kedashim of Yama. There was a wall, the width of an Amma, that was between the Kodesh and Kodesh Kedashim. V'kivish abonu Bayis Sheni nistapik lehem. He had a suffix. Im oivi Yakoisel midas Kodesh or not. In other words, was the Kodesh Kedashim 19 Amma and the 20th Amma was this wall, or was the Kodesh Kedashim 20 Amma and the wall was the first Amma of the Kodesh? It had a suffix. So they stretched the Heichal to an extra Amma. The Fichach Asu Kodesh HaKadoshim Esrim Amma Tmimos. They made the Kodesh HaKadoshim 20 Ammas complete. But also HaKodesh Arba Amma Tmimos and the Kodesh also 40. V'nichu Amma Yisera ben HaKodesh and HaKodesh HaKadoshim. They left an Amma in between. So they added an Amma into sort of the Kodesh. Another thing is not only that they had to add space, they decided not to build a wall. They made 2 paroiches, Echa mitzad Kodesh Kedashim, Echa mitzad Kodesh. One from the side of Kodesh Kedashim, one from the side of the Kodesh. And Rubenei and Amma, and they had an Amma in between, Keneged Oivi HaKodesh Shai B'Rishon, for the thickness of the wall. But by the first Mikdash, there's only one pareiches, like it says, one pareiches. So there's a few ways of understanding what happened here with this wall that was replaced by 2 curtains. Number one, besides having a suffix where the Amma is, there's also a suffix if the curtain that was the front of the wall in Bayis Rishon, was it 20 Amma away from the beginning of the Kodesh Kedashim or 21 Amma? So by putting 2 paroiches in, no, we know which side the wall is, but we don't know if the wall was a chelek of the Kodesh. If the wall was the 20th, so where should you put the paroiches? It could also help by putting 2 paroiches in, not just to clarify where's the space, but also you have either or, you have the right spot for the paroiches. Some are masber that this amma of space was not just because they had a suffix. Some say also the reason why he has an amma of space, because between the Kodesh and the Kodesh Hadashim, such a big gap of difference of holiness, you need a mamutza. This was like the Kesed, a mamutza between Ein Sof and Atzilus. So it was you needed an extra amma. Halacha Gimel. Ha'hechel shabanu b'nei Agoyla, ha'yameya al meya al romeya. It was a square. The hechel was 100 by 100 amma and was a height 100. Now the way that Rambam is going to explain the hechel is going to be a little different from the diagram, the 3D structure here, 4D. So it's gonna, we'll see it's good to see it so we can see the little chalukim. So how did it have? So we'll figure out how is it 100 by 100 by 100. So Rambam will start with the height. Here's the height. Banu goiva sheish amis otum kama yisoidla. First they built 6 amis, and that was like a platform. It was a full, it wasn't no rooms. It was a platform to build the heichal on top of it. V'roim kosle abayis arboim amin. Then the walls of the heichal were 40 amas high. V'roim akir shebetikra ama. And then they had a roof, but that the roof was made in a way, there was a lot of designs. It was beams with all these different beautiful designs inside. So that's called a kir. Room kir shebetikra ama. V'agabav goyva shtei amas ponish yikonis beyadalef. Huanikra beis dilpa. On top of the roof, there were 2 amas of empty space, which is called beis dilpa, which if water gets in, so it doesn't leak through the roof because it can fall out from the sides. So it's an empty area of ear where the rain can go through. And a pot, maybe it was a pitch. Could be.
It had to be a slight pitch.
Yeah. And up top of the area Beis Dilpa, there was another roof. And that was also an amma thick. And on top of that roof, they had plaster to fortify the roof, and that was thick amma. And upon this whole structure of 40 amas and then a few more amas of roof with the space in between, they had another second floor. They were also 40 amas high. And also 1 amma of a roof that had these beautiful designs. And then 2 amas of empty space called Beis Dilpa. And another amma of another wall. And another amma of plaster. And they had a makkah, which was the fence around the roof, and that was 3. And then there was a pointy metal plate that was above the fence, so the birds shouldn't stand on the edges of the roof of the heichel. Which is get rid of the oidev, get rid of the birds. And so total from the bottom, including the whole platform, till the top of the fence of the roof is a total of 100 amma. So again, you had a platform that was 6 amma. Then you had a wall that was 40. Then a roof that was an amma, called kiur, because it was nice designs in it. Then 2 ammas empty with ear for the rain. And another amma of a roof and an amma of plaster. Top of that, you had another 40 ammas for the second floor. On top of that, the same, an amma of kiur of a nice design, a roof, and then 2 ammas ear, another amma of another roof, and then maziva, and on top of it, a fence with a pointing metal on top. So total altogether, 100. Over here also, the Ravid has an argument, and he says that there wasn't such a thing as 2 roofs with 2 ammas of ear in between. Doesn't make sense. He says that structure was different. After 40 ammas, on the sides of the walls, there was an amma with nice designs. Because really, if you're standing in the Eichel, you didn't look up 40 ammas and see a roof. You looked up 44 ammas, 43 ammas to find the roof.
You know the way we make a roof and then there's a roof, there's a space.
We actually make space
there is 2
because
roofs.
we want to, for a couple, we want to stop the sound and the leaking. You have a lot of protection. There's reasons for it.
Right, so maybe they did
But they had another aliyah on top. Think about it. Then we're going to have another whole floor. Right? So between the first and second floor, we also usually make taka between 2 floors. It also helps block the sound. Anyway, the Rambam, he says it was different. There was on the sides of the walls there was nice designs, and the 2 amas of Beis Dilpa wasn't ear. It was just straight wall. It's just outside there were drains for the water. That's why it's called Beis Dilpa. And then you had the roof on top with the plaster. So it's another argument in the Rambam and the Ravid, the structure of the Beis Hamikdash.
Go ahead. Yeah,